was into Horizon within a minute of that announced trailer. I mean, wow, you lead with this interesting post-apocalyptic tribal aesthetic, but then you follow with the hook. Machine animals inhabit this world too, and in this first showing of gameplay, they hinted a larger ecosystem for these machines. I mean, the deer are grazing, and the velociraptors are patrolling to protect them. Guerrilla Games is showing off that this was a world that they thought about. And then... Yup, they cap it off with a fight against a robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex. This was an open-world action game that I could not wait to play. But then some details came out that worried me. The numbers that pop off the machines when you make contact, the leveling, the dialogue choices, all from the developers that gave us a pretty mediocre story in Killzone 3. As an action game, well, everything looks great. But as an RPG, I saw writing on the wall. Bullet sponge enemies that you can't fight until you level your way up to them. Grindy gameplay that forces you to repeat the most efficient, reliable technique on every enemy instead of what's fun to pull off. Unavoidable area of effects that keep you out of high-level fights before you're ready. An empty shell of a protagonist made just for me to project myself onto so that I can immerse myself in a world that takes itself way too seriously or undercuts itself way too frequently for me to get invested. But if you've played Horizon, you know that what I'm describing is not the game that we got. Not only did we get some silky smooth gameplay that is demanding enough of you to require that you use everything in your arsenal, we also got some surprisingly strong RPG systems to play with that you can deploy to give yourself the best edge in combat. Though Horizon leans more on the action side of its action RPG, none of its RPG mechanics really feel disposable, and that's very rare. On the action side, only one of its weapons is redundant. It's the one I'm firing right now. I've never fired this before. I'm only firing it now because I needed the footage. For all this talk about play your way in the industry these days, I'm always shocked to learn that someone found a way to play that I never leaned into. Me? I fight every enemy I come across. I always use the hunter's bow. I load 3 arrows at a time and target large weak points, laying out tripwire and tying down who I can with the rope caster. But I have a friend who didn't engage with any machines that they didn't have to. And another friend that used the sharpshooter bow to knock off plating and corruption arrows on the warbow to turn machines against each other. When I started again to play on higher difficulties, my playstyle had to change to compensate. Now I paid more attention to melee and enemy attack patterns. I mean, like 5 other games exist where you're really able to mix the action and the RPG elements, and all of those are Dark Souls. Everything else shortchanges the gameplay or the strategy because the more mechanics that you have up in the air, the more difficult it is to balance them. Seriously think about how rare it is for an RPG that gives you expansive tools to upgrade your weapons to also force you to aim for the weak spot on the weakest enemy in the game, even at max level. Those enemies typically become fodder by the end, but not here. And on top of just being an excellent game in every facet of its design, Guerrilla Games went out and hired this guy, the lead writer behind Fallout New Vegas, and gave him and his team the room to explain this world. But not only that, they gave a real arc to their protagonist. Leading up to release, I watched developer interviews that talked about how proud they were of Aloy as a character, but the most I was expecting was another Sevchenko. We got a real character here, with a persistent personality and human vulnerabilities. And the developers had so much respect for the character that they created, the only choices that they give you as the player are which of these traits you would like to use to solve a problem. You aren't Aloy, but you can express the part of your Aloy that you feel best fits the situation on this dialogue wheel. And seriously look at that wheel. Think about why it's there. The story is linear. You don't make choices that impact the direction of the narrative. Your choices don't fulfill an RPG mechanic either. So why are they labeled with a fist, a brain, and a heart? Wouldn't the writers be better off writing to 1 Aloy instead of 3 depending on your dialogue choice? Wouldn't that speak better to the character? Well, no. And I can't really think of another game where no is the answer to that question. At any point, Aloy does not solve a problem once. She solves it 3 times. She solves it with her brain, she solves it with her fist, and she solves it with her heart. And when she's faced with a problem, it's not her one solution that speaks to her character, but all 3. She's in a quantum superposition with each of these dialogue options, and it's your role as the player to collapse the wave function. You did it, buddy. That's your role. Because it doesn't matter what you choose. Aloy has found 3 paths that will bring her to the same conclusion, and that says more about her character than any of these lines. So the writers made their jobs 3 times as difficult, at least whenever this wheel pops up, trying to say something honest about Aloy in each one that ultimately gets her to the same place as the others. And they do a pretty good job. It's a lot easier to write for any of these than all 3 at once. It's an ambitious balancing act, but it was worth the effort. Because this 3-pronged dialogue system applies basically everywhere. Its characters can all be traced out somewhere on this tug of war between brains, brawn, and heart. and so can Horizon's 3 pillars of design. Its action, its strategy, and its story, they all fit on that mold. The RPG elements make the combat more thoughtful and deliberate, and the challenging gameplay makes those RPG choices more than circumstantial. This gameplay reinforces the kind of person that Aloy is. Persistent, hardened, but also thoughtful, considerate, and prepared. This gorgeous world is a testament to the hard but intentioned work of both its literal and literary creators. And these machines, everybody says that these things are dangerous, but words don't sell the threat. It's the frosty drool slipping between the teeth of a snap maw, and the horrible sound of gears locking into each other before it pounces at you. This balance and feedback of each critical element feels like the defining design choice behind Horizon, and it's the thesis of this story too. Listen, Aloy's journey is about learning the importance of that feedback. As she grows through her journey, so too does her arsenal and her knowledge of how to use it, but there remains one element that she has yet to truly learn. All her training and studying has been only for herself, and while that's going to be sufficient for her own self-preservation, it won't count for anything more than that if she doesn't believe in a purpose greater than that. And the evidence for that is all around her. Every other character in the game can be mapped on this triangle, but it is Aloy in the middle, and I'll break it out. Helios is the strongest character, but he is so Helios that he decides his failure to kill Aloy in the first chapter of the game was a sign from the gods that he was meant to sacrifice her in the fighting pits. Yeah, likely story. The only reason he didn't kill Aloy was because the gods were like, no. Save her for the pit. Mother Tirsa is the most compassionate, but she and the matriarchs make up stories to explain what they don't understand, and they use these stories to rationalize their fear in the unknown. Sylens' curiosity dialed up to 11. I don't think that there's a line he wouldn't cross for knowledge, and he's responsible for setting the whole game in motion because of that. These characters are foils to Aloy. They each may surpass her in their specialty, but they are insufficient when taken as a whole. Horizon is very much about the human tendencies that push people away from the center. In fact, the events of the game do their best to drag Aloy down into this region of the map, but it's Aloy's mentors who keep her centered. She is marked an outcast from birth because she was born of a mountain and spends the early hours shunned by everyone except for Rost, the man who raised her. And boy, let me tell you, he raised her right. Rost has a bit of a backstory, so all I'll say is that he felt fortunate to be in the Embrace even as an outcast. And Aloy, not so much. Which is why she spends her entire youth training for a contest that, when she wins, will gain her admission to the tribe, and one request: an answer to where she came from. Aloy doesn't care about gaining admission into the tribe. She just wants answers. In fact, admission into the tribe is less of a cherry on top and more of an additional complication. Because Rost will always be an outcast, and when Aloy joins the Nora, she will be forbidden to see him. Aloy has all this figured out. She'll sneak out, seem in secret, break the law as she pleases, but Rost doesn't want it this way. Fat chance she wants to join the group that made her an outcast at birth. Despite all of that, Rost's final lesson is, yeah, you won't need the tribe.
But I never said the tribe wouldn't need you.
She may get her answers, but the consequence of that is joining the tribe and accepting the duties that come with that. Rost's final lesson is to serve a purpose greater than yourself. That means accepting the responsibilities that come with the choices that you make for you. Rost does not allow her to think or muscle her way out of this truth. When she wins the proving, he will be gone. And you can make Aloy say that she learns this lesson now, but she'll act on it, truly, right here. So, a little context. Aloy has finally gained insight into where she comes from and why she was born. She also learns about the stakes, a machine army buried below their feet soon to be awoken unless she stops it. Rost could never have anticipated Aloy would have such an enormous responsibility thrust upon her. Armed with all this information, she emerges from the door her tribe long believed was the womb of a goddess, and they drop to their knees. These people who called her outcast, shunned her, mocked her, they now worship her. But she does not preach to them from this stand. She yanks them all the hell up and teaches them the lesson that Rost taught her. Fight for a purpose greater than your tribe. She cries out, I don't belong to you. And that is not a rejection of the Nora tribe itself. No, it's a rejection of the Nora's ownership of her. She is not Aloy of the Nora tribe. She is Aloy of this whole world, because that is where her responsibility now lies. Not as a Nora brave, but as a hero for everyone. And that is why Aloy is the model of a character who will save the world. She is clever enough to overpower foes much larger than herself, sure, but she's also taken ownership of the consequences of her actions. She races through the ruins of the old ones looking for answers about her past, but with each dusty graveyard she visits, she finds also a greater purpose for her destiny. She's not the same person that she was when she started this journey, when she was looking for a clever way to get the answers to her questions and ignore the rules of the Nora. Now she accepts the burden that comes with her pursuit of knowledge, and the responsibility that entails. That's an arc, ladies and gentlemen. It's right before the credits when Aloy comes face to face with her long-dead clone mother. This entire world she left for the people that she hoped would come after her. Elizabeth Sobek lived and died by the same words that Rost did.
To serve a purpose greater than yourself.
To serve life, not death.
Elizabeth didn't know what the world she left behind would look like after so much time had passed. But every step Aloy or anyone takes through it is because of the woman who saved it. And I can't help but feel just how proud Aloy is of her two mentors. How fortunate was she to get the teacher that she got in Rost, who taught her how to fight for herself and more. How fortunate was she to inherit the curiosity of Elizabeth, and to witness her example through her adventure.
I understand the final lesson, Rost.
Do you?
But if I'm going to stand for something, it'll have to be something I believe in.
Then I hope you find it, Aloy. I hope you do.
How fortunate is she to be the person always tasked with fighting for something good, the world her mother left behind, and the people in it. Thanks for watching.